It was 8:43 p.m. when I overheard the conversation that changed everything. She was in the living room with her friends, Cassandra, Talia, and Erica, sipping rosé, 2 glasses already down. My wife, Fiona, sat with her socks half off, one leg crossed over the other, laughing like she was auditioning for a commercial. The Bluetooth speaker played soft jazz, and the windows were slightly fogged from the warmth inside. Everything seemed staged, artificial. And then it happened. "He's handy at work," she said, her tone light and casual, "but useless in bed." Her friends erupted into laughter. Cassandra nearly choked on her drink. Erica muttered something under her breath, and Talia, the only one who seemed remotely uncomfortable, just shifted awkwardly. No one asked why she would say such a thing about her husband. Fiona grinned proudly, sipped her wine, and added, "He folds towels like a machine, kisses like a cousin." I stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, holding a basket of clean laundry as if it could shield me from the weight of her words. On top of the pile was one of her cardigans, neatly folded, just the way she used to love. But now those small acts of care felt meaningless. I didn't move or breathe. I simply listened, absorbing every word. Then, quietly, I walked upstairs and sat on the floor, replaying every memory we'd ever shared. I thought about her late-night work events, how she laughed when I entered a room like I'd interrupted something important. I remembered the way she started wearing perfume again, but never for me. Physically, she hadn't betrayed me, at least not that I knew of. Emotionally, though, she had left long ago. The woman I once folded socks for was mocking me to an audience of wine-drunk enablers. That realization hit harder than anything else. I stood up, grabbed her suitcase, and began packing. Not out of anger, but with careful precision. It reminded me of how I rebuild engine parts at the shop or iron her blouses before big interviews. Downstairs, the party continued. More laughter, more chatter. When I walked in with her packed bag, Fiona looked at me like I was a ghost. "What are you doing?" she asked. I set the suitcase by the door and replied, "If I'm so useless, you won't need me tonight." She froze. Someone behind her whispered, "Oh my God." Then another voice spoke up, Cassandra. She stepped forward, glass of wine still in hand, and said, "Honestly, I'll stay with you. She doesn't deserve you." Fiona stared at the suitcase like it was a dead animal on the porch. Cassandra moved past her and perched herself on the arm of our couch, completely unbothered. Tilting her head toward me, she remarked, "You really folded her clothes before packing them?" I nodded. "I always do." Fiona's voice cracked. "Are you serious right now? Cass, you're not helping." But Cassandra ignored her. Instead, she turned to Fiona and said, "You humiliated him in his own house." There was silence after that, heavy and suffocating. For the first time, Fiona seemed unsure, exposed. And while she didn't leave immediately, the damage was done. The cracks in our marriage weren't hidden anymore. They were out in the open, impossible to ignore. You mocked him as if he weren't human. Fiona, you lost the right to feel offended. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not even her own sister. She wasn't accustomed to facing consequences or enduring my silence. I grabbed her coat from the back of the dining chair. "You forgot this." She didn't take it. Arms crossed, she stood there, waiting for the situation to turn in her favor. But it didn't. Cassandra rose and headed toward the front door. "Come on," she said to Fiona, "let's go." "I'm not going anywhere with you," Fiona shot back. "You're just mad I didn't side with you during your divorce." That struck a nerve. Cassandra froze mid-step. "Oh, you mean when I found out my husband was cheating and you told me to be sexier and deal with it?" "Yeah, thanks for the support," Cassandra replied sharply. Fiona's face turned pale. Her eyes darted to me, hoping I'd intervene. But I didn't. Instead, I stepped outside and placed her suitcase gently on the porch. "You don't have to go far," I said calmly. "Just not here." That's when she finally moved. She snatched her coat, grabbed her purse from the counter, and slammed the door behind her. I thought that was the end of it, but it wasn't. 15 minutes later, I was in the laundry room dumping out every towel I'd just folded, unable to tolerate the lingering scent of her perfume. Then I heard the front door open and close softly. I walked out to see Fiona back, but this time she wasn't alone. Talia had returned with her, and Fiona was crying. "She left her laptop," Talia whispered, almost apologetically. Fiona looked at me with tear-streaked mascara running down her cheeks. "Can we just talk, please?" For a fleeting moment, I almost nodded, until Cassandra's voice called out from upstairs. "Gil, where do you keep the extra blankets?" Fiona froze. Talia's eyes widened. I simply smiled faintly and responded, "Top shelf, closet by the stairs." Fiona didn't speak for several seconds. Her gaze shifted between the stairs, me, and then Talia, who now looked like she regretted accompanying Fiona altogether. The silence was suffocating, thick like smoke, heavy with tension crackling in the air. Leaning against the doorway with my arms crossed, I waited. Not because I had something clever to say, but because, for once, I wasn't the one explaining myself. Finally, Fiona broke the silence. "She's still here? Why? You let her stay?" I tilted my head. "Are you worried about Cassandra now?" Talia interjected awkwardly, trying to play peacemaker. "Maybe it's not the time." "No, Talia," Fiona snapped, rounding on her. "You said this would be quick. Grab the laptop and go." "I didn't know she was upstairs," Talia muttered defensively, "and I didn't think you'd walk in here acting like the victim." I should have said something sharp, noble, or cutting. Instead, I walked over to the closet, retrieved the laptop bag from the shelf, and handed it to Fiona. "Here, take it." Fiona hesitated. "Gil, I didn't mean it. You know how it is when I drink. I say things I don't mean." That was her standard excuse for the veiled jabs, the cold silences, the nights she never came home after girls' night. Wine, vodka, gin, always someone else's fault, always an excuse. "Exaggerate," I said, closing the distance between us. "Do you exaggerate when you laugh at me in front of your friends or flirt with strangers while I'm parking the car?" Her face flushed red. "That's not fair." "No," I replied, my voice steady but sharp. "What's not fair is working 11-hour shifts and coming home to a partner who treats my love like some kind of punchline." Just as her mouth opened to respond, the doorbell rang. Fiona froze, confusion flickering across her face. "Are you expecting someone?" she asked. "No," I said flatly, "but you are." I pulled open the door to find Erica, one of Fiona's closest confidants from those wine-soaked evenings. The quiet one who always smirked the most but said the least. Except this time, she wasn't alone. Standing behind her was a man, tall, self-assured, wearing a jacket that felt eerily familiar. It was a men's size large, the same one I'd discovered months ago crumpled under her side of the bed. A receipt tucked inside confirmed its origin, a gift Fiona claimed was for her brother. A funny thing, she's an only child. Erica blinked rapidly, clearly caught off guard. "Oh, we didn't realize anyone else would be here." The man beside her shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting everywhere except toward Fiona. He looked guilty, out of place, reluctant even to step inside. Fiona's voice trembled. "Why are you here? What are you doing?" She clutched her laptop tightly, as if it might protect her, or maybe expose her. I gestured toward them with exaggerated politeness. "Please, come in." "Let's clear the air together." Erica hesitated, glancing at me uncertainly. "Gil, maybe we should—" "I insist," I interrupted, smiling thinly. "Let's all be honest for once." Erica entered first, carrying herself with the false bravado born of too many secrets and bottles uncorked. The man followed reluctantly, his boots scuffing against the threshold. They were still dusty from wherever he worked, hands calloused, posture tense. Not wealthy, but undeniably familiar. Talia, another friend lingering near the doorway, whispered something unintelligible before slipping away silently. Clearly done playing mediator in a drama spiraling out of control. "I didn't think anyone would be here," Erica muttered, her gaze darting around the room like she was assessing escape routes. "Didn't you?" I countered, my tone deceptively calm. Too calm. Fiona's voice cracked again. "Why are you here?" Erica tilted her head, feigning innocence. "You texted me earlier, said you needed to talk, mentioned leaving something important behind." "My laptop," Fiona clarified quickly, though her voice lacked conviction. "Well, I brought him instead," Erica replied, her smile smug yet brittle. The words hung heavy in the air. My eyes landed on the man again. Younger than me, yes, but not by much. His hands were rough, his presence unmistakable. A mechanic? A roofer? Someone who worked with his hands. Someone real. And then it clicked. He wasn't just familiar because of the jacket. Fiona's lips parted slightly, barely moving. "I didn't ask you to bring him." Erica shrugged nonchalantly. "You told me last week you didn't care anymore who found out." So, and there it was, the unraveling thread. Fiona turned to me, desperation flashing in her eyes, ready to launch into whatever defense she had prepared. But I held up a hand, cutting her off before she could begin. "No," I said quietly, firmly. "Let's see what Erica has to say. She always seems to be one step ahead of me." Erica smirked, but the expression quickly faded. "You really don't know?" I didn't flinch. "You're the one who laughed the hardest when she called me useless." I paused, letting the weight settle between us. "Explain it to me." Erica glanced at Fiona, then back at me. "They've been seeing each other for 3 months. She said she needed spark, her spark." At that, the man standing behind her visibly recoiled as though struck. Fiona's voice dropped to a whisper. "It was a mistake." I inhaled deeply, feeling my pulse throb in my throat. "Which part?" I asked quietly. "Sleeping with him or saying I was only good at folding towels?" She didn't respond. Cassandra appeared at the top of the stairs, her hair disheveled, sweater slipping off one shoulder. She froze when she saw the group gathered below, her gaze landing directly on me. "Do you want me to leave?" Fiona's head snapped up. "You stayed the night," she accused. Cassandra raised an eyebrow. "And you were going to spend it with your spark, weren't you?" Erica shot Fiona a look, half amused, half incredulous. The young man edged toward the door, his discomfort palpable. I laughed then, not dramatically, but tiredly, emptily. Is this what passes for relationships now? Cheap thrills and wine-soaked nights filled with insults? Fiona took a hesitant step forward. "Gil, please, I didn't know." I cut her off sharply. "You knew exactly who I was. You just thought I'd never grow a backbone." I walked past them all, opened the door, and turned to the guy. "You should go. You've caused enough damage for someone too cowardly to even meet my eyes." He nodded silently and slipped out. Fiona stood frozen in the center of the room, mascara smudged, shoulders trembling. But for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. Instead, clarity washed over me. Cassandra descended the stairs, looked at me, and whispered, "Are you okay?" I nodded. "I think I finally am." Then the doorbell rang, and everything changed. The chime reverberated through the tense silence, drawing our collective attention like marionettes yanked by unseen strings. Fiona hastily wiped her tears, clinging to some semblance of composure. Erica gripped her wine glass as if it were a lifeline. Cassandra moved closer to me, her hand brushing mine, a quiet reassurance I hadn't realized I needed. Then, without warning, the door opened. Not knocked, not hesitated, and whoever stood on the other side simply walked in because they had a key. My stomach plummeted. There was only one person besides Fiona and me who had access: Judith, Fiona's mother. She swept in wearing a floral scarf, her hair styled impeccably, exuding the same air of judgment she always carried like armor. What unnerved me most, however, wasn't her entrance. It was her lack of surprise. Not at the crowd, not at the palpable tension, not even at Cassandra's pajama-clad presence or Fiona's statue-like stillness near the fireplace. She looked prepared. Her sharp eyes found me immediately. "Oh, good," she said crisply. "You finally found out." I remained silent, stunned into immobility. None of us spoke. She turned to Fiona, her tone cutting. "I told you this would come out eventually. You become reckless when boredom takes over, much like your father." Fiona's mouth dropped open. "Mom, what are you even doing here?" Judith stepped inside and closed the door behind her. "You left your birth certificate in my desk drawer. I assumed you'd need it for your new apartment or whatever you're up to now." Fiona looked mortified. "You told me you shredded that." "I lied," her mother said casually, as if discussing the weather. She handed Fiona the envelope and turned to me. "You deserve better than her. I told you that at the wedding, but you were too lovesick to listen." Erica snorted. "Well, this just got awkward." "No," Judith snapped, her eyes locking onto Erica. "It got honest." I watched Fiona unravel in real time. The facade, the pride, the performance, all of it crumbled. Whether it was the affair, Cassandra, or now her mother exposing everything under a spotlight, I wasn't sure. Then Judith stepped closer to me, reaching into her coat pocket. I tensed. She pulled out an old photograph, folded, creased, slightly stained. It was of Fiona and me at our engagement dinner. She was laughing. I looked like a man who thought he'd won something. Judith glanced at the photo before handing it to me. "You were always the better one." "You just forgot." For a moment, no one moved. Then Fiona muttered bitterly, "So what now? You want him? Be my guest." Her words dripped with venom, pitiful like a bark with no bite left. Before I could respond, Cassandra stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "No, he wants respect, something you haven't given him in years." Fiona scoffed. "What do you even know about our marriage?" Cassandra didn't flinch. "I listened. Every time you called him pathetic. Every time you rolled your eyes when he tried to surprise you. You never saw him. Not really." And that was it. The final blow. It wasn't the affair, the insults, or even the guy with the jacket. It was realizing everyone else had noticed what I refused to see. I wasn't loved. I was tolerated, used, and now discarded. But I wasn't broken. Not anymore. Judith remained standing in the middle of the room, commanding like a prosecutor in a courtroom she built herself. Fiona leaned against the wall, looking like she might slide down it any second. Erica had retreated to the far side of the room, her wineglass finally empty, her smugness replaced by confusion. Cassandra hadn't spoken since her outburst, but she stayed by my side. That meant more than I could process. Judith reached into her purse again, and for a moment I thought she might pull out another photo or perhaps a list of grievances carried in her sharp tone. Instead, she handed me something thicker, an envelope, sealed, my name written in her precise handwriting. I didn't open it immediately. "What is this?" I asked cautiously. "Proof," she said simply. "Proof of what?" Fiona's face lost the little color it had left. "That your instincts were never wrong." "You didn't," Fiona whispered, her voice trembling. Judith slowly turned her head toward her daughter. "Of course I did. You used me as an alibi, remember?" The silence that followed wasn't just tense, it was charged, heavy with unspoken truths. Judith's gaze remained fixed on Fiona. "How many times did you tell him you were at my place when you were with him?" Fiona exhaled shakily. "It was one night." Judith corrected her sharply. "Try 7. And 2 of those nights, I called Gilbert to check if you'd made it home safe. He told me you were still at my place, which clearly you weren't." I swallowed hard and finally opened the envelope Judith had handed me earlier. Inside was a printed email exchange, reservation confirmations from a private cabin rental service forwarded by Judith. Dates, times, names on the guest list. Not mine. The second name was redacted, but I didn't need to see it to understand. Receipts, locations, lies, it all fell into place. Fiona whispered, "You betrayed me." Judith shot back without hesitation, "You betrayed yourself." She turned to me then, her words catching me off guard. Coming from the woman who once glared at me over Thanksgiving dinner, they felt surreal. "You're not blameless, Gilbert. You stayed quiet when you should have spoken up. You let her control the narrative, but you never disrespected her, not once. You loved her the way every mother hopes her daughter is loved, and she threw it away." Fiona looked like she might shatter something. "You always hated that I married him." Judith didn't flinch. "I didn't hate it because of him. I knew you weren't ready. You thought love meant attention. Gilbert gave you stability, and you got bored." There it was, the truth laid bare, cold and undeniable. Judith walked to the coat rack, grabbed her scarf, and headed for the door. Before leaving, she paused and said to me, "You should get a lawyer. You deserve more than silence and folded laundry." Then she glanced at Cassandra, her tone softening. "You," she said, "stay. He's going to need someone who sees him." And with that, she was gone. Fiona didn't cry or scream. She simply stood there, numb and defeated, exposed in front of people who no longer believed her version of events. Cassandra finally moved, stepping closer to me. She touched my hand gently and whispered, "Do you want her gone now, or do you need a minute?" I looked around at the room I'd built, the home I'd held together while it quietly crumbled from within. Taking a deep breath, I replied, "She doesn't live here anymore." Fiona raised her eyes, but I wasn't looking at her, not anymore. My focus had shifted. I was already looking ahead. Sleep eluded me that night. I lay on the couch, my arm draped over my eyes, listening to the creaks of a house that felt emptier than its physical vacancy suggested. Cassandra had offered to stay, even prepared the guest room. But sometime around 3 a.m., I heard her keys jingle and the door click shut softly. Perhaps she thought I needed space, or maybe she didn't want to be there if Fiona returned in a rage. But Fiona didn't come back, not that night. At exactly 7:04 a.m., reality returned. The morning air felt heavy as I stepped outside, still wearing yesterday's clothes, my vision blurred from lack of sleep. The world seemed suspended in uncertainty, the streets empty, the sky undecided between light and shadow. Out of habit, I headed toward my truck, but something caught my eye. A plain white envelope wedged under the windshield wiper. No markings, no clues, just silence folded into paper. I glanced around, searching for movement or life, but there was none. Whoever left it had already disappeared. Back inside, I sat at the kitchen table and opened the envelope carefully. The note inside was typed, stark, and precise. It read, "Gilbert, I couldn't say this last night, not with everyone there. I know I've caused damage that can't be undone. You didn't deserve any of it. You were always the safer choice, and I was chasing chaos, mistaking it for passion. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to tell you that I never stopped loving how deeply you cared, even if I didn't know how to return it. Not Cassandra. That final line hit me like a punch to the gut, a mix of accusation and confession all at once. Not signed by Fiona either. My mind raced through possibilities until one name surfaced: Talia. Quiet, observant Talia, who always seemed to linger on the edges of conversations, rarely laughing as loudly as the others. She'd left early that night, visibly uncomfortable when Fiona's sharp words cut through the room. Guilty. That's what she looked like. Guilty. And now here was a letter from someone too shy to speak her truth aloud, but unable to leave without saying something. I stood abruptly, nearly knocking over my chair. Talia, but why? What did she hope to accomplish? Was this pity, regret, or something else entirely? Confused, I tucked the letter into a drawer and stared out the window, unsure whether I felt angry, flattered, or both. Just then, my phone buzzed, a blocked number. One message. You should ask Cassandra why she really stayed. No explanation, no signature, just those cryptic words. For a moment, I froze. Then I retrieved the letter again, rereading it slowly. Something about the timing, the tone, it didn't sit right. Why now? Why her? Who was orchestrating this tangled web? I ignored the text and didn't call Cassandra immediately. I needed answers, but not fragmented ones delivered in whispers or half-truths. Clarity, that's what I craved. By noon, I grabbed my coat and drove to her apartment. When she answered the door, she wore an oversized hoodie, her hair pulled back carelessly. No makeup, just raw honesty. Something had shifted in her demeanor. "I was expecting you," she said simply, stepping aside to let me in. I didn't set. Instead, I pulled the letter from my pocket and held it out. "Was this you?" She shook her head firmly. "No, but I knew about it." "Then who wrote it?" Cassandra hesitated, biting her lip before answering. "Talia. She's always had feelings for you. She just never said anything." I blinked, taken aback. Surprised, yes, but not angry. Something deeper stirred within me, though. I couldn't yet name it. The layers had grown exhausting, but betrayal wasn't the word I'd use. This morning's message, "Ask Cassandra why she really stayed," left her frozen. She moved to the window, drawing in a breath before turning back to me. "I've been in love with you for over a year," she said. That night hadn't been about revenge or pity. It was the first time she'd seen me choose myself. And she couldn't let me stand there alone. My chest felt both heavy and light, as though the truth had settled gently, like warm rain after chaos. "You could have told me," I murmured. Her response came softly. "I didn't think I deserved to. Not after laughing at that joke. Not after everything." Silence filled the room, but it wasn't painful this time. It was an opening, a threshold to something unspoken yet palpable. I smiled then, genuinely. "So what now?" I asked. "Well," she began, smiling back, "you're single, I'm single. And I make a mean cup of coffee." We sat together for hours talking. Not about regrets, not about past wounds, but about books, music, silly childhood memories, and what healing might look like when two people stop pretending and simply see each other. When we finally parted ways, it wasn't bitterness I carried with me. It wasn't vengeance or lingering frustration. Instead, I left with someone who saw me for more than what I could offer or fix. Someone who recognized me beyond roles or expectations. What I walked away with was peace, a quiet, unexpected kind of peace. Sometimes endings like these are the most surprising of all. What moment stands out to you? Was it the weight of silence between them, the confession itself, or the simplicity of connection over coffee? Let us know what resonated most.